Yep. Give me a nod when you're ready.
Like
Shooter's ready. Stand by.
Hey everyone, welcome to this episode of Bullets N Bourbon. I'm joined here with my co-host Frank Gow, and I'm joined with Dillen Easley, Alex Goking, and Sean Muller. So previously we recorded with Scott, Mike, and Land from Dissin and Arms, who represented the U.S. delegation in open division for Shotgun World Shoot. This time, as I previously said, we're speaking with Alex, Sean, and Dillen Easley, who's going to give their perspective from the modified division. So we've had Alex and Sean on before, and way back when I first started this podcast, we had Dillen Easley on. So real quick before we get into anything, Dillen, can you go ahead and just reintroduce yourself for those who haven't listened that far back?
Yeah, go back and listen. Go through some of the episodes, get some views on there. So, I started shooting in 2012. Started out with local matches at CMMG's range in Fayette, Missouri. Shot a couple matches, got my butt kicked. That kind of set me in motion of I had to try and do better. By the end of that year, I was already traveling to Texas and several other states, and then it's just gotten worse from there now.
Awesome. No, it's great to have you back on, to be quite honest with you. Yeah. So, Alex and Dillen represented the U.S. delegation for the modified team match. But Dillen, we'll start with you. How did you envision slots being handed out initially?
So I initially thought there'd be like an invite process or putting word out. Something would happen, and you would go around and be like, "Hey, we think you're a strong shooter. That you could be in this division. Are you interested?" And now that I know better, it makes a lot more sense. Back in like 2018, the last Shotgun World Shoot, I really thought like, "Hey, man, somebody would bring up like, are you interested in going?" And then I could have made a decision of like whether or not. Now I kind of found out you kind of have to go search it out yourself. Just like the Rifle World Shoot qualification and applications are going to be coming up in like the next 4 or 5 days. If you want to go, you got to get that application in. Then they'll pick teams and stuff from there. Team selection for us, on the other hand, was a little different. There was no modified team. And from the outside looking in, I didn't know if anybody was even shooting modified. And Sam Larkin can get the majority of the credit. Sam was going to shoot open as an individual, decided like, hey, you know what? Let's talk to some guys and see if we can put a modified team together. So he approached me and said, hey, what do you think about shooting modified? Kind of talked it over with family and some friends and some sponsors and stuff like that. Was this worth it? Would this be a good idea? This sounds fun. Kind of got the thumbs up, like, hey, go pursue it. We started talking about, what do we need to do as a team? And like, well, we need 4 people. So we ended up talking to former Marine shooter, James Gill, and James was going to go. And then we happened to be, I think, at NRA show, and we talked to Chad Torres, and Chad was able to go. Later on, James wasn't able to go. So then it was an aspect of, well, we need a 4th. So go through the lineup and you're like, okay, well, who's here? I'm like, well, start with A. Well, there's Alex. And I'm like, well, let's ask. He may not be interested in being on the team. He may be, I don't know. Which it created a different problem for us, because with Alex and Sean traveling together, they were actually supposed to shoot a different schedule than us. So they were supposed to shoot AM and we're shooting PM, which would have put them there at different times. So with Alex joining the team with us, we had to try and figure out how to get Sean on the same schedule so they could ride together. Because there was some transport stuff that, my understanding, like we had a driver to take us to and from the range, and they had a vehicle that they were driving, if I'm correct there. But yeah, that selection process isn't really a selection process per se. If you have the money to go and you're interested and you put yourself out there, like if you get out there early enough, there's probably going to be a slot for you.
You said something that kind of cued an interest. You said that there's no modified team for the U.S. and it was basically Chad Larkin, uh,
Yeah, Sam.
or
Yeah,
Sam Larkin.
yeah.
I'm sorry,
You're
had
good.
to basically built the team.
Yeah,
In I largely in part modified division is wholly a new division here in the U.S.
yeah, for us,
For
but that's
us.
not a new division for IPSC.
So
There was
how
actually a modified pistol division and a modified rifle at one time. Now it's just modified shotgun.
how long have they been shooting modified shotgun in the in the world?
I don't know when that actually started, but I believe that 2018 there was a modified division, and there may have been one in 2015. I'm not aware. I didn't go back and look at scores that far back. Um, but I mean, to give you an idea, the modified division rule sets in the U.S. are fairly well set based upon IPSC modified.
Okay.
We don't have a modified rifle division in IPSC anymore. We have open and irons basically. But the modified rule set for rifle was loosely based upon what used to be there. And then the biggest difference for modified pistol in the US versus what was in IPSC is you had to fit in a box. And I think in order to fit in the box, you had to have like a shaved mag well in the back, no more than a 5.25 inch barrel. And then with the optic mounted to the slide, you had to have a 126 mil mag. Otherwise, you wouldn't make the box. So
Mm,
those would be some sizable changes for us in the U.S. Going from 140 mil mags to 126s. I don't know how many rounds that loses us, but I would assume it would be a fair amount. Go from a 24 round mag to maybe a 20.
yeah.
But yeah, I mean that they don't even have modified pistol anymore, to my knowledge.
Okay. Alex, real quick. Since you were essentially the water boy of the match and you got thrown in at the last minute to be to follow up since somebody else couldn't shoot. Did you have any thoughts or ideas of how selection would go, or were you kind of already kind of in tune with how they were going to be doing stuff?
I was based off of just the lead up to Worlds. I kind of was fairly aware on like how things were done, and Dylan already covered that. But in years past, I always assumed there would be a set of qualifiers around the country. But something that I learned fairly recently, getting into the long gun game, that it's not necessarily a big or popular thing at all in the U.S. doing IPSC specific shotgun qualifiers. So that's how I envisioned it was going to be, but obviously a little bit different. But that's kind of where I sit at on that.
Well,
Okay.
kind of add to that.
Yeah.
So one of the reasons why we probably have that in our head that it was going to be a place, IPSC handgun, when we go to IPSC handgun world shoot or whatever, that is based upon IPSC nationals, which is oftentimes happens in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
IPSC nationals is shot every year in the U.S., and then you have USPSA handgun nationals, and those finishes are typically put in place, and that's kind of how a lot of selection. Like I remember, I think it's JJ Racaza was not on the U.S. I think open team or something like that for handgun world shoot, and people are shaking their head. Well, he didn't meet the qualifications somehow, which a lot of us would have said like he needs to be on that team, like he's going to dominate it. And then for whatever reason, that's just not how things worked out. Which if we go back to 2018, Josh Freilich was not on the open team and won it overall.
Yeah.
So
kind of going back to that conversation of having the best representation in the future, how do you think it should be changed? Like we talked about in the episode with Mike and Lan and Scott that, bringing all shotgun matches, and there could not be an appetite for it. But do you think that is a format that we should go to in our community in order to find that best representation, having like a IPSC shotgun qualifier or a nationals that you can accrue points over a period of time, or what's your guys' opinions on how that should be conducted? And Dillen, we'll start with you.
I think so. I think that's I think if you started with it tomorrow and put on an IPSC shotgun match in February in Texas, it's not gonna fill up. You need to get that out of your head on day one. Like, this is something that's gonna build over the next couple of years. But the people who are serious about it are going to go through and be like, hey, you know what? I'm going to go ahead and head down to Texas in February, and I'm going to go shoot this match. And you're like, I might shoot 3 or 4 of these qualifier matches in modified. I might shoot 3 or 4 in open, because I think that match format would have been a blast in open. You'd be limited to 10-round mags, and then you never know. Like, hey, you go shoot 3 or 4 or 2 or 3 in modified and standard and open, and there may be a slot for you available in each one of them. And you're like, hey, you know what? Open sounds like the most fun. I'm going to go play there. Or maybe it doesn't sound like the most fun, and you're going to go play in modified. Or guess what? You don't qualify for open, but you did qualify for standard. And I think that'll give you your best representation. Taking match finishes at 3-gun matches, I don't think is going to be the best way to try and pick a shotgun world shoot team, because I can take somebody who's just a monster with a pistol and a rifle, and all of a sudden they're on the standard team because they shoot tac ops real well, but they are not a monster with a shotgun. That's not who I want being on the US team. As an individual, fine. You want to go and have fun, man, I'm all for it, but maybe not the team aspect.
Alex, what do you got?
I agree with that. The last thing Dylan said, but having that as part of like the general shooting community in the US, I do agree with Dylan as well. It's not something that's going to take off right away, but I do think that it'll be a wonderful thing to have, not just for qualifications, but just an avenue where you can have shooters come out and just see how good they can be with a shotgun in a broad spectrum kind of manner, where it's not just shooting stuff, but it's how you move with one, how you load one, how you manipulate one. I think that would be fantastic.
All right. So what kind of sources of information do you draw from when planning a trip to Thailand with guns and ammo? And Alex and Sean, I know you guys were probably closely talking all the time, considering that you were co-located here in Quantico. So Sean, we'll start with you.
I was actually getting a lot of my information from Alex, who ended up getting a lot of his information from a lot of the seasoned US delegation members. We had our Facebook group, which was astronomically helpful for us. At least it was for myself. I'm pretty sure, Alex, you could agree with that, with receiving information. It was both of our first time traveling internationally with firearms and ammo. So I think without that help from all of the seasoned shooters, it would have been really difficult to find it ourselves.
Now, that Facebook group, was that one just for the US delegation, or was that a World Shotgun Shoot Facebook group?
That was just for the delegation. It was just for us to talk and pass information and whatnot.
Okay. Alex, we're just gonna skip over a few on this because, like, Sean just basically answered for you. But Dillen, you being out there in Kansas, how did you draw a lot of your information? Who were you communicating with to get that?
I mean, I went with the flow. So the same Facebook group, there were some people putting good information on there. Brian Nelson was one of them when it came to, like, here's some practice targets you guys can download and print off, right? And then, I mean, Becky Ackley was putting out information about traveling and contacting the airlines in advance and everything else, to make sure that they just at least had it notated that you were traveling with a firearm. I never had any issue. And the guy that I was traveling with, Ruben from Vortex, he didn't have any issues. But like Chad Torres, we didn't know if Chad was going to make it to the match, because he got held up, I think, in Denver, and then Atlanta, and then like Dallas maybe or something like that. They did not want to let him fly internationally because they're like, well, you were told you didn't need to do anything, but we have nothing here notating firearms.
So,
Um,
real quick on that, if he was not able to make the match like that close, and you guys get there to Thailand, would you have been able to substitute him with somebody else getting there on the ground?
yes, I believe we had up until like the morning of the shooting starting to go through and be like, hey, this guy didn't make it, or hey, this guy went out last night and broke his leg on on whatever, he can't shoot, can this guy be on the team? Then we would have had to beg Sean to like, hey, can you come join our squad? But yeah, we would have had the opportunity, but when it came to like the flying and everything, like when it came to ammo, there was a federal group buy that Land from Dissident Arms put together.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and I just asked Land, like, what do I need to send? And so he kind of helped me along the way and said, like, hey, 400 to 600 rounds of birdshot. There's probably 300 in the match. I go, okay, that sounds fine. So I sent 600. And then he said it's usually about 30 rounds of slugs and buckshot. So I sent 50 of each. In retrospect, I probably should have sent about 100 of each just to be able to get a little more practice in advance. And then have that in the back of my head that I've got plenty of ammo. I don't need to worry about like, make sure you don't have any makeup shots. But beyond that, though, I mean, in all honesty, it really wasn't as bad as I thought it would be.
No, that's good. I mean, like you hear those horror stories traveling overseas and not getting all the information that you need, and it's good that information is being passed the way it needs to. Just based, and that's coming based on people who've already been out there. You would think that you would get a little bit more support from an organization that's supposed to be the representing body, but it's good that there are people out there that already know the process that can help along the way.
Well, I'll give a little bit of credit to a couple of the guys at USPSA. I don't remember exactly which board members they were, but they were kind of in that same Facebook group. And at one point in time, I'm reading one of them goes, "Don't fly through Tokyo.
Hmm.
You may never see your guns again." And apparently that happened with one of the handgun world shooters from the previous year going to Thailand. They went to Tokyo and like their infinity pistols are gone, from my understanding.
That's rough.
Kind of that's a painful one. So I mean, they gave us a kind of a heads up on that, and I think the two routes that ended up being popular were through Qatar and through Seoul, and then to both of those to Bangkok. And we went through Seoul, and in all honesty, like I was a little nervous, but not bad. But when we got to Seoul and we got off the airplane, there's a dude there in a three-piece suit with a briefcase that has a sign that had my name and Ruben's name, and like, uh-oh. And like he straight pulled us to the side, took us to a table, took a picture of some of our IPSC passport, to shoot in Thailand, a couple other things. And he's like, all right, you guys are good to go. And that was about it. We didn't even see him on the way back because we confirmed all of our information at that time for the return trip.
There always seems to be a bit of a pucker factor when traveling with firearms, just because it is so controlled. Like whether are my guns going to get there or am I in trouble?
Yeah, I think the guns getting there is the minor concern.
Mhm.
I've got a one-of-one shotgun.
Mhm.
There's not another one like it, and which is awesome to get to shoot. But the bad part is if I got to Thailand, then it's an aspect of like, hey, can I borrow somebody's backup gun? Because Sam went with two guns and Chad went with two guns, which Sean got to shoot one of Chad's backup guns. Would I have needed that? Would I have been able to? I definitely wouldn't have been as comfortable shooting it. So, yeah, I mean, the little bit of a pucker factor, when you travel within the U.S., you got different state laws, but I don't know what the firearms laws are in South Korea.
Mhm. So, usually in 3-gun, we dedicate all our training, to 3 different guns and not just to one platform. What did solely focusing on shotgun teach you during the workup for the World Shoot? Alex, we'll start with you.
So before anything, I'd like to say for all the customs agents, listening in on this, myself and Sean only flew with gun, but no ammo, as we declared. Anyways, moving on.
I don't
So-
see how that. Okay.
Yeah, don't worry about it. They're cool dudes. Anyways, so you hear a lot of in 3-gun where, okay, it doesn't really matter that much how fast you quad load, as long as you keep all your shells in, you don't drop any, that's cool, you'll be fine, you'll do well. One thing for sure in IPSC shotgun, you definitely don't want to drop shells, but you definitely don't want to load slow. Like I saw it, I dropped a few points just because, one, I dropped shells and I loaded slow. So we leading up, we spent a lot of time in pretty much just making sure we can send those quads into the shotgun effectively in a timely manner in order to, be competitive. That was a big thing. We did a lot of it. I had a lot of bad habits to get rid of, but Sean, his quad loads are pristine. It's kind of unfair, there are times when I felt like, when will I ever be the bride? Because definitely the bridesmaid this time around, but that's just me venting. One thing we did this time, and I don't know if Muller's really that convinced that it worked, but I can tell you right now, it worked great for me. A couple weeks prior to, I felt, wow, took full advantage of the service team member, the benefit of being able to control my schedule. Like, hey, we're about 12 days out. We're going to have a completely different sleep schedule to make sure that when we get there, we are on that schedule and we're not dealing with jet lag or anything. So that was part of our prep on the way there. But those are the big things. I will say that Muller and myself, we both have hit factor carbine style experience because of the Marine Corps matches. And he shot a little USPSA. I shot a lot of it. So the footwork, the stage planning, entering, exiting positions, all that good noise, knowing your pace was very natural to us. So I'd say that was more of a long-term, it was a good long-term benefit that we had from doing things like that. But other than that, it was just a lot of what I just said.
Sean, what you got?
So this was the first opportunity that I would say that I've had where I've essentially been like forced to focus on one discipline. So for me, it taught me a lot about isolating techniques, especially for quad loading. I was able to identify a lot of deficiencies, whether it be my caddies are at a certain angle that my grab doesn't like, or my wrist is at a certain angle when I put them up to the gun. It's just little things like that that I was able to identify and really hash them out. So I think it's very, very beneficial for 3-gunners especially to take time on each gun, whether it be shooting a different discipline or just dry firing one gun at a time for an extended period of time.
And Dylan, you've been at this game since 2011. What did isolating on just one gun do for you in preparation?
Really. So one of the things that I don't do, I don't train multiple guns at a time. I might take all 3 guns to the range with me, but a lot of times I'll shoot rifle. I'm done with rifle, I'm going to put it up. I'll shoot pistol, I'm done with pistol, I'll put it up, then I'll shoot shotgun or whatever order. It doesn't really matter. So basically my range sessions, the biggest problem I had was, all right, I got to let the gun sit down and cool. And then I'll go through and reload my caddies and get stuff ready and go set up, move targets, paint targets, whatever. The hard part, I think, in trying to do preparation for this, I was talking to like Josh Freilich on what targets he used when he prepared. And, I ended up running an improved mod choke for pretty much everything because it was the only thing I was really comfortable with what I thought were tight no shoots. And that perspective changed pretty dramatically, which I'm sure we'll get into at some point. But for me, it was just an aspect of like, okay, I shot Vortex Shootout, I shot Memorial. So I shot a couple of big matches in October, November, had a little bit with deer season, but then like I was practicing anywhere from 450 to 550 rounds a day on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, through November until we left. It didn't really change a whole lot for me. I only had to bring out one, but that's not uncommon for me. Usually when 3-gun season ends, I'll shoot absolutely nothing but pistol from November until March. And then I'll break out the other guns.
Nice. Alex, you're a stage designer, a match director, jack of all trades, I guess. What did you see out of the target presentations and overall stage design at the World Shoot that you would want to bring back to your matches?
So I number one thing when I first set foot and started observing the stages, you're not allowed to walk them until the day of. But when I was observing the stages, the first thing I saw was the attention to detail and how the stages are put together was just the best I've ever seen. Like things that could be at a 90-degree angle were at a 90-degree angle, like the shooting areas and all that stuff. The stages were well decorated. It really got me. Those things got me for sure. But what I would want to bring back to the Quantico match, or even to a certain extent the Marine Corps matches, is just how every bit of the shooting area, every bit of the shooting tests your ability to not just shoot, but your ability to maneuver with the shotgun or the gun in general. Entries and exits were tested like continuously throughout the match. That if you came into the match with a stand and deliver mindset, you were going to be leaving a lot of points on the table. There were some parts where shooting on the move was the most beneficial thing, yet the riskiest thing to do. I like that a lot. Definitely put me through a couple dilemmas. And the no shoots doesn't sound like a whole lot, but I've never been in a situation where I had to know just about virtually every pellet that comes out of my shotgun. I needed to know where they were going, and I thought the tight no shoots were a very interesting challenge in the match. And best way to put it in like one package, I remember one of the stages on our last day. It was our last day of shooting. There was a stage where it was like, hell yeah, this is definitely an American stage. There's a lot of open steel, just hose them down, burn them up. All right, cool. I have a couple of makeups available coming into this position, so I can be a little bit more aggressive. And at the end of the stage, every shooting position had a no shoot covering up about 80 to 90%. No, it was about 80% of the target was covered by a no shoot. So one strategy, like one of the dilemma it put me through was, okay, cool, I can choke up real hard, but I'm going to lose a lot of time on the open targets. Or I can choke down, hose all these open targets, and really try to edge the targets behind the no shoots down range, which obviously I found like a happy medium where I wasn't choked up too hard, but not too light either. But that kind of planning, these kind of like planning considerations behind behind the shotgun, I thought was amazing. It was definitely mentally stimulating, and I'm hoping to figure out a way to incorporate that into specifically the QSC 3-gun match for sure.
And Dylan, as a seasoned 3-gun competitor, what aspects of the stages would you like to see brought into 3-gun here in the States?
There's some of them that I don't think you're going to bring into 3-gun as easy. I think the tight no shoots, they were tight. Like Alex said, you had a 6x6 plate that had 1.5 inches available in the top edge only. I hit plenty of them. I think I hit like 5. So it wasn't like I, got away unscathed, and I shot an improved mod choke on all but 3 stages, I think maybe 2. And those were like our very last 2 stages we shot on the last day with no shoots. And it was like, oh man, now I can go nuts. And then you got to the stage, like, oh no, it's 8 rounds. You can't go nuts. You got to go 1 for 1. But There are some other aspects. I think, we talk a lot about shooters being left-handed, right-handed. I've almost never seen like legit perfect symmetry in stages where you're like a left-handed shooter and a right-handed shooter. There is no major advantage for one or the other. You can't go through and say like, oh man, a left-handed shooter set this up. No, man. I mean, they're symmetrical. They're perfect. There's no hang up for one person or the other. The attention to detail was unbelievable. There are no aspects of like, you can tell that somebody had some 2x2s and they just kind of pieced together about 6 pieces to make a fault line. Like, no, you got a crisp 2x4 that's, set down and, goes all the way to the corner, and it was cut to length for that stage. Which is, I think it's gonna be hard to replicate. Not that it's not doable. But some of the more professionally put on matches like Texas 3-Gun, Memorial, you could argue that USPSA multi-gun nationals could very feasibly get there with who's running it now. Those are things that could find their way into stuff like that. The tight no shoots, though, that could get real interesting. If you brought that into some of the major 3-gun matches, you're going to have some people real upset when they go and they're like, well, I don't have a full choke. Like, well,
Why?
with a full choke, you're going to have to hold 2 inches off the plate.
Well, I remember, I'd say one of the tightest stages I ever shot, like where it had some really gnarly no shoots, was a Blue Ridge match from 2016, and we were shooting steel targets, steel knockovers. The what are they? The 5x10s, the
Yeah,
rectangular
they had some
plates.
of the tall skinnies, like a
Yeah,
4x10, 4x9, something like that.
yeah, and you were shooting those from 25 yards away, and there was a no shoot pretty much right in front of it, and you had to be really precise with your positioning, or you were going to knock over your no shoots. And you just don't see that much these days.
Don't. And then, there's the other thing, like in that match, because I remember I shot Blue Ridge quite a few times, and a lot of times stuff like that was with a pistol.
Mm-hmm.
So it's a hard shot. The problem when you jump over to your shotgun is no longer, we're not talking about a projectile hitting it. We're talking about a pattern that might be this big when it gets there, or it might be this big. So now I've got to hold off here or here, depending upon what choke I pick. I mean, that's where like Alex and I got into conversation. What choke you run? I'm like, I'm just going to keep it tight. I'm just going to keep an improved mod in the gun because there's a no shoot on this stage again. And you're like, there's only 2, but I'm going to have to go with what I know I can at least shoot the target without hitting or without being as likely to hit a no shoot.
And there's a lot of science behind the shotgun and chokes and velocities. And if you go up in velocity and, tighten up your choke, your pattern's going to be a certain way. If you go down in velocity and keep it like, you really you have to know how that shotgun operates with the ammo that you put in it and the chokes that you put in it. And it's not a matter of, well, I'm just going to throw in this choke so I can go this fast. It's like you need to actually know what pattern it's going to hit.
There's also the aspect of what shot size.
Mm-hmm.
Everything that we sent over was 1,235 foot per second, 1 1/8 ounce, 7.5s. I don't know if any of the other people from the other countries were shooting 7.5s or not, but all the guys that bought the IPSC Zala ammo that they're shooting over, those were all, I believe, 6s. And so they're shooting heavier shot than us. And I don't know if Alex was paying attention when I asked one of the Italian shooters, like, what are you running for a choke? And he goes, 5. The hell does 5 mean?
Isn't that
He was
like
using
modified?
factory Benelli chokes. It was an IC.
Okay, yeah.
I'm running an improved modified. He's running an improved cylinder with 6s.
Oh
He
wow.
just knew it. He knew exactly how much to hold off of the no shoot with an IC at that distance. And I'm going, I'm not comfortable with that. I would have had to have practiced a hell of a lot more to really know that. But I mean, I practiced with an improved mod on my home range, shooting buckshot at plate racks at 25 yards, and like every other plate painted red as a no shoot. And like, man, I felt confident. Well, my plates are that far apart.
Mm-hmm.
And we shot, I think it was like the 3rd stage we shot with buckshot on the first day. The target is here, and this much is visible in front of the no shoot. Like it's like this. you know, and you're 1.5 inches. And by the way, that's with buckshot at like 7 yards. And you're going like, man, I mean, can we shoot buckshot at 7 yards? You're like, well, we're doing it here. Like we're gonna test this live because I didn't shoot anything that close to me in practice ever. The closest thing I shot was about 10 yards. But I shot clays with slugs. I shot clays with buckshot. I shot all kinds of stuff. But just had never considered that, which I think is one disadvantage we had on the modified team. The open team, 3 out of 4 of the shooters had shot international matches before. And Scott Green was your 2018 shoot-off winner in open. So, I mean, they had some experience to know a little bit better what we're getting into and can communicate. And the modified team was 4 dudes that had never been.
And barely knew each other.
We're going to try it live, you know.
Something that we haven't discussed so far is the length of the match. So typically 3-gun majors in the United States, they'll last a weekend. You'll shoot 2, maybe 3 days. But this match, it went over 5 days of shooting. And, you know, IPSC Handgun World Shoot has a day built in for rest, but this one didn't. And we learned that when we talked to the Distant Arms crew. So I actually want to pitch this question to Sean. You guys shot a bunch of majors, you know, you did a whole competitive season and you got used to shooting over a weekend. What was the transition like shooting over an entire week, in addition to all the travel and everything else that you had going on?
Yeah, it was definitely an adjustment, but I knew going into it that it being a 5-day long match, it was going to be this consistency that's going to keep you at least somewhat in the game. So what I planned this before even leaving. I knew that I was going to shoot the stages for the day, and then as soon as I'm done, I'm going to be studying and looking at my stage plans for the next day. And then I'm not going to relax. I'm probably going to look over them over dinner or something like that, but I'm not going to lay down in bed until I'm like confident with my stage plans for that day. I'm going to be confident with what choke I'm going to be using, where I'm going to be loading, because they were graceful enough to give us an actual match book so we could actually take notes in the match book for each stage. So doing all the walkthroughs and not actually walking the stages, just looking at the stages from the viewing area. We were able to do all the math with like our patterning pictures that we have from patterning right before we left, being able to determine what choke we had and where to load and all that stuff. It was that was all really helpful to have that in a physical book instead of just a picture. So when I'm done with planning stages and all that, and I'm confident for the next day, that's when I completely focus on relaxing and just essentially just brain dumping, just making sure that I'm not over stressing about anything. And then a big thing was that I didn't look at any of the scores until it was the second to last day, which probably still wasn't a good idea, but yeah, that was
the beginning of the second to last day or after?
It was at the end. It was at the end.
All right. Yeah. A full day of shooting is still a lot of available time to fuck yourself over mentally. But okay.
You would not believe how fast I could miss.
I believe it. Everyone on this episode has done that at some point. We've all missed really fast. But okay, so mental consistency and preparation. Alex, would you say largely the same for you over this long format?
Very, very similar. So Muller and I have very similar like intro match battle rhythms where we don't like doing anything stupid. We don't like going crazy. It's about just staying somewhat like not concentrated, but focused on what we're supposed to be doing, and then following it up with getting proper rest, doing our best to relax so we're not burning up mental resources the day before. Hydrating, I'm not going to talk about it on the podcast, but it is extremely important. And getting a good amount of food. Like we definitely had a fairly balanced diet out there, for sure. And that's generally it.
Okay. So Dylan, you've been shooting matches for a very long time, and it sounds like you have had some experience traveling abroad shooting before. So what's your approach to this long format? And is it really different from your approach to like a major 3-gun match?
It became different. So Alex shot with us on the first day, obviously, and but he wasn't in the van with us when we were on the way back to the hotel. It was quiet. We got schooled pretty hard the first day. We didn't really know what to expect, and so my preparation on the way to day one, I sat in silence with AirPods in, my head down, my eyes closed. I envisioned every trigger pull, every dot crossing every target, everything you could imagine. At the end of the first day, it was like, well, that was rough. And so I started to realize a couple of things. It is going to be a 5-day match. Everybody's going to have a bad day or they're going to have a bad stage. And I had all of them on day one. Every one of my mics was on the first day of shooting. But I also figured out that I can't really tell what the hell is on these damn stages until I'm physically walking them. So I had a rough idea of what each one of these stages would entail, but I really couldn't see it and envision it until I walked it. So I kind of put it out of the back of my head. When we were done shooting at the end of day 2 in the morning, at what, like 11:45 in the morning, I have a massage schedule. Let's head back to the hotel. I'm going to go back. We're going to have lunch. And then I'm going to go to my massage. I had at the hotel, like a foot and head massage, relaxing hour. Then after that, we'll go to dinner. The biggest thing I think that I think made things easier for me, you're in a country where, like, man, I'd love to go get some Thai food. I'd love to go check things out. I was not about to take a risk. So the group that I was with, we were all staying at the same hotel. It was an aspect of like, all right, guys, there's like an Americanized mall over here. There's a steak place. I don't know how many tenderloins we ate, but it was like tenderloin and potatoes because we knew it was going to be safe. Now, once the shooting was over, we got way more adventurous with the food. But that was my biggest concern, is like, man, I'm not going to shoot very well if I'm holding a trash can while I'm sitting on a toilet. So that was my biggest concern with being over there and potentially getting in contact with something that my gut's not used to. But as far as like the shooting goes, man, we never touched a target. We never reset a damn thing. So, I mean, I've kind of poked fun at Aaron Hayes and Josh Fralick and all the guys that came back from 2018 Shotgun World Shoot, talking about like, oh man, paid resetters, it was so awesome. I'm like, oh, go out there and work, quit being a sissy. Like, I mean, dude, we shot 5 half days. The only reason I was sweating is because it was like 92 degrees and 95% humidity. I never put more than, I mean, what was the longest stage for most of us? 25 seconds, 26, 27. So I never put in more than 30 seconds of work on a stage at all. And then you're sitting under the awning, waiting to go to the next stage. I didn't really have too many issues in pacing that out and accommodating that, because after you shoot, you can walk over to the freaking 7-Eleven that was on the range and go get a bottle of water for 10 baht, which is like, what, 30 cents? Nice. Yeah, I mean, it was convenient as hell. That's one of the reasons that, like I said, Sam and I have kind of talked about when we might go to Hungary and go shoot another international match. We're not going to touch a target while we're there. We're not going to have to work. It'll be like golf, man. Be like a vacation.
Yeah, heck yeah. There's a lot to be said for that type of match support. Having shot a staff reset match, not internationally, but at least here in the States. It's different because I think we get used to the cadence of prepping, shooting, cleaning, loading your mags, and then just bullshitting with the squad and helping reset the stage. And that becomes part of the entire rhythm. but it is nice to be able to dedicate all your mental and physical energy to just you. I think there's a lot more competitive equity there. I had a follow-up question for, I guess, Sean and Alex. So, Dylan, you mentioned that you focus on specific guns out of the 3 guns at a time. But for Sean and Alex, I mean, this is the first time that you guys have just went super hard on one of the 3 guns, and you learned a lot about, the guns themselves, the shells you're shooting through them, the chokes, all that stuff. Are you coming back to 3 gun matches with like a renewed sense of just confidence and understanding, and almost like looking at shotgun? Like, how did you look at shotgun before, and how do you look at it now? Alex, we'll start with you.
Definitely, even definitely coming back with a little bit more confidence, especially on the note of having actual live in match experience on what my pattern does, all that good noise. And yeah, coming back to 3 gun, it's just the way I see it, especially coming from a USPSA background, when you go into USPSA, and I still shoot it, I know what I can do, I know what's going to happen. It's all about execution at that point. A lot of 3 gun, it takes a little bit of time for sure to really get warm and fuzzy with absolutely everything your gear is going to do. Like, for like, just to briefly touch on like a rifle, it's like, all right, cool, like it's one thing to shoot everything under 50 yards, but it's another thing where, okay, cool, temperature fluctuated slightly, do I have the right lot of ammunition? And in the shotgun, okay, is my inertia gun going to work? Do I have the right chokes? Do I know exactly what this ammo is going to do through this shotgun? But coming back from Worlds, knowing, being way more in tune with my shotgun, I can now go into 3 gun knowing exactly what my pistol is going to do, knowing exactly what my shotgun's going to do, and then just figuring out what to do on rifle, because that's the one thing that I need to spend a little bit more time on. But definitely, like, a lot more confident with shotgun. Like, I've never been tested this hard in shotgun, and it just feels so good to come out of it alive and all that good noise, figuratively, obviously.
Of course. Sean, do you feel largely the same way?
Yeah, for the most part, feel the same way. I felt that that sense of confidence boost with just focusing on one gun back when we shot the Microtech Pro-Am. Us and some of the other Marines on the team, we were shooting the RO match, but I wanted to shoot as much as I could with shotgun, like for whatever reason, probably because it was my first match with my new shotgun. It's a Dissident M2. So I wanted to shoot as much as I could with it, and it ended up doing pretty all right. And then I'm looking forward to shooting my next major, because I want that same confidence with that. So
Yeah.
hopefully it'll feel good.
I'd like to butt in real quick. That's the Microtech Pro-Am 2023 RO match overall winner, by the way. Kind of a big deal.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Calm down.
I didn't realize they give out awards for the RO match.
Nah, but apparently you get a lot of photos taken with the other ROs.
Is that right next to the plaque that they give it to the What If champion?
It sure is.
I'm
Hey,
just-
there's a prize table.
I know the prize table is different from the actual awards, but I'm just ripping you guys. Okay, so it's been some time, right? We're in a new year. You guys have had some distance between you and the travel and the match and everything that went down. So how are you looking at the entire experience, just in terms of the results, what it's taught you about yourself as a shooter, and what you might be bringing back into this next competitive season? And Dylan, I'd like to hear from you first.
I don't know. It was an awesome experience. Definitely, I've continually expanded where I was willing to travel to. So like 2012, I had like a 4 mile or a 4 hour rule, 4 hours away from me, and then it turned into an 8, then a 12. Now it's like an 18 to a 19 to a 20, and then hell, now I've flown 27 hours to get to a match. So my horizons have kind of expanded on that. As far as bringing something back from the match, I would love to say that I had some increased confidence for 3-gun when it came to shotgun, but it's such a dramatically different sport that man, it just seems like most of our targets in 3-gun are open. I mean, they're right there in front of you. All you got to do is just hit them. If anything, if I was going to bring back, I wouldn't necessarily mind having the action target made in 6s, and I'd run a more open choke than what I probably ever run before. I might even run like an IC, and I pretty much run light mod for everything in 3-gun. I might run more open with heavier shot and go to town. I'd probably shoot a little quicker than I would have in the past in 3-gun, realizing that, I was shooting stuff with an improved mod at 8 yards. Like I was hitting them with a golf ball of lead. So, yeah, I mean, other than that, though, I mean, definitely reservations for traveling are reduced. My concerns about traveling with firearms are reduced a little bit, and I might be a little more willing to maybe fly to a match in the US where I would have driven before. But we'll see how that one goes.
Matt, you have a follow-up question?
Yeah, Dillen, you largely compete. Well, this season you've largely competed in modified division since you were prepping for the World Shoot. Previously, in most of my experience, you've always bounced around the different divisions between modified, tac ops, open. Largely a lot of open shooting. Do you plan on sticking to modified for the time being, or are you gonna go back and focus on one of the other divisions?
I don't have a damn clue. I've got I've got some advantages. I've got guns that work in each division. I've got a 24-inch M2 that is still set up for tac ops. I've got a KL12 for open. My honcho works in any of those divisions, just basically a barrel swap or an optic or iron plate. I would say that as I'm getting older, the iron sights are a little harder to pick up on the pistol. So that, if anything, that might keep me a little more away from, from tac ops. But no, I have no idea. If we ended up having enough IPSC shotgun qualifier matches happening in the US over the next couple of years, I might shoot multiple matches in multiple divisions and go, okay, well, where do I actually fit the best? Because my goal would be, where can I provide the most benefit to, a team for the US? So if you told me like, hey man, listen, you shot really well in modified, but if we could have you bringing up a second or third in standard, because we think that would give us a better chance of medaling in standard, then we want you there. Like, hey man, like, it makes sense. Or if they go, hey, we want you to bring up a second or third or fourth in open. Okay, if that's where you think that I'm going to best fit based upon match finishes and qualifier matches, then hey, I'm game. I've got the gear for all of them, so why not?
No, makes total sense.
Yes. Alex, how are you seeing this match? With some distance between you and it.
So I want to touch a little bit on what Dillen said. He's absolutely right. This is a different kind of the shotgunnery and in IPSC is significantly different from what we have in 3-gun. And I would almost venture to say it's the difference between like Steel Challenge and USPSA even. But how the match went for me, the things that I worried about. Oh, let's start with day one. Dillen's experience on day one. Yeah, Dillen, you had a very quiet ride home. My ride home was a mix of quiet and learning that I probably need to vent a little bit more, and just being a broken record in the year of Muller over here, just kind of just talking about how pissed off I was in my performance, to the point where I was literally considering midday, what, I'm just going to sell all my gear and just take up another hobby. That's how intense that day was, because and it happened to be the slug and buckshot day of all things, where a lot of the I'm that the match was almost the won and loss on that day, or that area of the match, but that really beat the crap out of me. I'd like to say I like shooting nervous, But Worlds nervous is a little bit more intense. So I would say it started to get into my fine motor skill a little bit more than I'm used to. But I loved it. I loved what it taught me on what I really need to work on. Was the shorter stages. I feel like I performed more at my level, where less quad loads the better for me. Even though I love quad loading, but that's where I was able to at least pull. I pulled myself out of performing a lot worse with a series of short courses and medium courses of fire, but the field courses are where I really left a lot of points on the table. But other than that, generally when I saw my finish, just like Muller, I don't like looking at my scores just because there are two wolves in me. One's a jackrabbit, one's a tortoise, and I'd rather not tap into one or the other. And I saw the finish and I was like, you know what? After having a first day like I did, I think placing where I did was fair, and I'm not gonna lose too much sleep over it. And on the bright side, I'm able to come back with a lot of lessons learned. But that's how the match was for me, for sure.
Hey, real quick, Alex, not to relive past transgressions, but just to kind of get a gauge and a feeling. So this year at McNCR, you obviously didn't perform where you wanted to. And you described day one, going back and, learning that you need to vent more, things just didn't happen the way you wanted them to. What can you describe? Was it a similar feeling or was it at a much more elevated level in comparison to Marine Corps marksmanship competition in CR?
It was it was more of a compounding effect where leading up to NCR, there were a lot of things that I felt like I wish I performed better at, and it wasn't just shooting. It was it has a lot to do with also like I try to push myself at work a little too much sometimes, and it's just not giving myself time to mentally recover from all these things. It was just a leading up to, like, if you put me in, if you had me bomb day one like I did at Worlds, but took away everything leading up to it, I think I would have been a little bit more positive. But it was it's long story short, since it's not what the podcast is about, it's there's a great danger lies in doing your favorite pastime, your hobby, as a job, because it can become the ladder a little faster than and a little yeah, it could become the ladder a little harder than you think. So on top of just the admin stuff leading up to Worlds, it definitely pushed me to the edge. But I hope that answers your question.
Yeah, no, it does.
Yeah, I kind of put on a cylinder choke for that answer, so hopefully it hit.
Dylan,
I'll add a little bit to that. So I think one of the things why the first day was so rough for us, when we walked in, we're checking out stages in advance. There was some pretty high hopes and pretty high confidence. Even we had some of the other people going like, "Hey, man, we think you guys in the modified team have a really good chance of potentially podium or even better." And you're sitting there like, "All right, hey, I prepared. I wanted to show up and win." So that was my goal. Like, not a podium, my goal was to go and win. Now, obviously that didn't happen. But I think that's the hard part, is when we finished day one, you realize like our expectations were walking away. We're going to take first, second, third, and fourth. And we walked away realizing like, I think Sean was sitting in 20 something. I was in 38th. And then it went downhill from there. And it was like, it was such a heavy, humbling experience at the end of day one, that I think that was kind of the hardest part for us, is like, trying to come back from that. And I think that, not to add too much to what Alex said, but, it was a very, very, very humbling first day. And then we all improved each day as we move forward. I think until Sean had some equipment issues, I mean, think through day 3, he was, I know you guys don't look at scores. I was looking at him going like, is this salvageable or not? 38th on the first day, because all the modified people all shoot at the same time. So we're all shooting the same stages. So it's not like in 3-gun where like, well, I shot stages 1 through 4, you shot 3 through 6. No, I mean, we're all shooting the same stages on the same day. So, you finish the second day and you're at 28, you're like, oh man, I jumped 10 spots. So it was a little easier for me to be a little more positive about it and know, because like it was salvageable. Here's an improvement. Here's an improvement. So I actually did check scores, yeah. And, Alex kind of sent a message about the point values on the stages. You're dictated 3, 2, 1, 3 short courses, 2 medium courses, 1 long course, which meant that your point values each day were roughly about the same. So you didn't have like a 3-gun match where you're like, hey man, these are all long range stages 1 through 4. Like those stages, you're going to have a hard time really picking up points because they're longer. Here's a 30-second stage. You can really pick up points if you shoot in 28, right? You knew what the stages each day were going to be about the same. So, but yeah, it was a hard fall on day 1 from big expectations, I think, to realizing that we didn't really know what match we were shooting.
Well said. Sean, reflections on the match?
Well, being that this summer was my second competitive shooting season, I didn't even expect to be going to a world shoot at all. I didn't really know that it was a thing, quite honestly, until we had our own internal tryouts for a slot on the delegation. So looking back on it, I was hitting myself pretty hard on the flight back, and I was thinking, oh, what could I have done better, whatnot, but wasn't trying to what if it, because I knew that was just going to make myself feel worse. But I did what I could, so that's really all I could say.
Yeah, for sure. We're wrapping up, guys, but before we jump off, you guys did spend some time in Thailand. So besides the match, what's one experience you had out there that you'll never forget? And for the sake of the things that happened in Thailand, we'll try to keep this PG. Sean, what'd you experience over there?
The biggest takeaway besides the match was seeing the entire world coming together in one spot, and seeing that people from all over the world have that same passion, the same fire inside of them that drives them to want to be better. I made a really good friend. He was on the Hellenic team. He was shooting standard manual. He was really great dude. He was keeping my spirits up when things weren't going the way that I wanted them to. So making friendships like that I know will last a lifetime was really what made this a really great experience for me.
Very nice. You gonna do some more international travel in your future?
I'd love to. Given the opportunity.
Yeah, man. If the opportunity comes up, you have to take it. Alex,
yeah.
What about you? Alex, something besides the match that you experienced?
Sorry, my mic was being weird.
It's all good.
So it's still somewhat related to the match, but since most of our off match hours were fairly tame and relaxing, but just like what Muller said, the people you meet out there, like we squatted, and Dillen's probably going to go into detail about this a little bit more than I will, but we squatted with the Hellenic or Greek team, modified team. We squatted with the Italians. After like a couple days, like people started to kind of like even keel out a bit and just everyone starts to relax a little bit more while still maintaining competitiveness. They were some absolute great individuals to shoot with. Like I was able to see on top of their shooting abilities. Just it was fun, mixing in with the other cultures and just learning about each other, talking to each other. It was great, and the awards ceremony, on top of the entire event, from the opening ceremony to the shooting to the staff to the event, this organization puts so much thought, so much attention to detail in everything that they do. Like everyone out there was proud of the event that they were putting up. All the competitors were proud to be there. Just everyone standing on the stage with their flags, and everyone singing their national anthems. Definitely the Brazilians like took that. If that was a trophy of who sang their national anthem the best, it would have been the Brazilians. Those shooters know how to hype each other up, and how to hype their own country up. But there was a moment where I sat next to Len, and Matt and Frank, you guys know very well, kind of just how much work we put into all of this every day, and it can get exhausting sometimes. But I sat next to Len, and I told Len when we saw some shooters walk up onto the stage with their flag, and I was like, I don't really set a lot of goals for myself, because I try to focus on the path. But I really want to know what it feels like to stand up there on that stage representing your country like that, like holding your flag. I told him, like, I kind of want to know what that feels like. And that was, a match so professionally done in a manner that they did, really makes you want to, really makes you want to be on that stage. And even just, I don't care, third, second, first, team win, just want to know what it feels like to be on the stage at an IPSC event. It was just wild, indescribable.
Yeah, I have a feeling in the future we'll look back at this moment on this episode, and yeah, it'll be quite a reflection someday in the future. Dylan, what's something you experienced out there that you thought was super cool?
Things that they went through. Our squad mates were awesome. Guys from Greece and Italy. I'm not going to butcher their names, but ended up becoming friends with them, and have kind of kept some doors open where we've talked about going back and maybe another match or two international before the 2026 Greece Shotgun World Shoot. It was kind of cool to see some stuff at the closing ceremony. There was a guy there that I can't remember what sport he worked with about getting them involved in the Olympics.
Muay Thai.
So which one?
Muay Thai.
Muay Thai. Okay, yeah, getting Muay Thai in it, yeah. And so he was heavily invested in trying to get like the Shotgun World Shoot to become an Olympic event. And after 2026, I believe the World Shoots will be held every 4 years, not every 3. So it'll be shotgun, then rifle, then I think pistol, and then PCC, then back to shotgun. Now, whether or not it ever gets to there on the Olympic stage, man, that could really change the horizons of things, where you look at like guys like us, I'm 41 years old. The next one I'll be 44. Like I'm getting closer and closer to that senior category. We push it into an Olympic sport, the three of us may not even be able to qualify for a team slot anymore, which is, not necessarily a bad thing, because, we want the U.S. to win, obviously, right? But it is kind of cool to see some stuff go in that direction. Some of the less boring stuff, there was some culture shocks in Thailand. We did some walking around and walked the markets, and I love my wife and I am faithful to my wife, but I can see where somebody visiting that country could definitely go a different route. The scenery was beautiful. It's a beautiful area in Thailand. Food was, for the most part, really good. The food at the closing ceremony, the closing ceremony was awesome. Ton of national pride, great event. The food was god awful. And I'm pretty sure I'm not the only one who will say that. But I'm with a shellfish allergy, I was pretty limited in what I could have. I had some noodles and stuff with, what was supposed to be like Alfredo sauce. I'm pretty sure it was just milk, and unseasoned milk at that. So, like I ended up resorting to French fries and chicken nuggets, and they were still bland. But outside of that closing ceremony, being like within walking distance of our hotel, there was great food everywhere. even like I hate saying a Thai restaurant, but when we went to eat at a local restaurant, it was damn good. I have yet to find mango or been able to make a mango smoothie like what we had over there. And I think I had like probably, God, man, 6 or 8 smoothies minimum while we were there. Just the fruit, for whatever reason, was way better. But yeah, it's something that I kind of wish my wife would have gone with me to experience. And I've already talked her into if I get into being able to go to 2026 in Greece, I think she's going to go this time.
Yeah, that's awesome. Really, really awesome to hear about your guys' experience, not just the shooting, but getting out there and meeting shooters from different countries and representing our great country on the world stage. It's all really great stuff. For our listeners, obviously, this is the second episode we've done on the IPSC Shotgun World Shoot. That's because it's such a big event. This is supposed to happen every 3 years because of COVID. And the last one was in 2018. This one's in 2023. So it only comes along every once in a while. And so the window for athletes to be able to participate in a match like this is like they only get so many chances. So that's kind of why we decided to, interview different groups of people about their experiences. But we really hope you enjoyed listening to Dillen, Alex, and Sean tell you about their experiences training for, traveling to, and shooting in Thailand. Let us know how we're doing. Leave us a review. And we'll see you in the next one.